Today from the stunning Phillip Island. We're in the thick of the first round action, and what a day it's already been so far. So much racing still to come this afternoon. I'm Isabella Lee Rugen, joined alongside Chris Stubbs. And Stubbsy, before we get on to the Monochrome GT4 series, which is about to get racing, just a bit of news on the GT World Challenge front. What can you tell us?
Well, that's it. The guys were just indicating about the penalty to our two-time defending champion in Liam Talbot. Just saw Liam and Declan Fraser out the back of the garage. He's feeling a little aggrieved, I think it's fair to say, Liam. He got the 3-grid penalty because of a wheel spin he said on green tyres, so it was unsafe release impeding here in pit lane during qualifying. He said it was green tyres, wheel spin. Like, come on. So he's feeling a little hard done by, but he's got the pace and they'll fight on.
Right, interesting one to follow throughout the day. Now on to our GT4s, which are about ready to get out there. A really fun session for them earlier this morning. Plenty of action. And our pole sitter, what did you make of his run?
Oh, Tom Heyman, outstanding. And he's such an emotional guy. It means so much. And we've seen him in a few different categories over the recent years on Shannon Speed Series. Class winner last year in Monochrome GT4. And this means so much to him. He's doing so well. But a huge grid, 31 cars entered for this weekend. It's just enormous. The mix of cars, you've got a lot of TCR people like the two-time champ there in Josh Buchan. You've got Cameron Crick, a supercars driver. Tony Quinn, a 888 Ample Red Bull Racing owner. There's such a great mix of people and some fast young talent. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, class and very diverse field. Alongside him on the front row, Blake Purdy, who I spoke to earlier, was absolutely thrilled with his qualifying run earlier in the day. Just some news we did see in that qualifying session, the Wallace Autosport team, their car go into the wall here on the straight. Thankfully, driver all good, but the brothers Jed and Jack Wallace will not be out there this afternoon. Just too much damage on that vehicle to get back out and racing. All right, we're about ready to go here on our GT4 series race. I'm going to throw it over to our commentators in Thomas Randall and Richard Crowell.
Thank you, Bella. Appreciate that. Great update from the lane. And yeah, shame to see the Mustang not taking the start in this race, but hopefully they will make a return at some point because they're going to be a really good combo over the start of the season. Really looking forward to this, an hour of racing in Monochrome GT4 to start off a brand new season with some new names and new faces at the pointy end of the field, but also some familiar ones as well. Speaking of familiar faces and names, one of them alongside me in the box in Thomas Randall. Qualifying for this race was awesome early today. There's no other way to say it. It ended with a red flag, but it was super competitive and super diverse at the pointy end of the field. So McLaren, Audi, Porsche and Ford for Silver Cup and right at the pointy end outright as well. Awesomely competitive, but then there's so many more stories all the way through the field as well.
There certainly was, Crailsy. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to everyone tuning in this afternoon. What a lovely afternoon of racing we have here, Crailsy. Beautiful weather. Phillip Island has turned it on for us. And like you said, qualifying was exciting, enthralling. 2 10-minute sessions that unfortunately were marred with those late red flags. But Tom Heyman in the Method Motorsport McLaren showing how it's done. 2.5 tenths on the field and that record-breaking time of a 1:33.6, so super quick conditions this morning. He put that lap together and he's alongside Blake Purdy, who's in the sole Audi R8 GT4. But like you said, we've got Porsches, Mustangs, Mercedes, Toyota Supras, BMW GT4s as well. So there's such a great mix of cars. We've got 30 cars on the grid, and unfortunately for guys like Jared Hughes, who was actually caught up in an incident on his run on his second lap, had to box after some contact, damaged the radiator. That car's fixed, but he will start out of 30th place.
And the number 19 Mercedes AMG Mark Griffith also had his fastest lap invalidated, which means his car goes right to the back of the field for AR19 Motorsport. Cars on the formation lap ready for the rolling start, 2x2 on the run down towards turn 1. Some other names to watch. Aaron Seaton will start the number 71 Gomersal Motorsport Ford Mustang out of 5th position, but he's leading the Silver AM class. The leading AM entry is Jamie Augustine for Randall Racing, one of the BMW M4 GT4's 16th position on the grid, but leading the way in the AM class, and you'll be able to tell those apart on our timing totem when we get this race underway. So the clock ticking, forward to opening the account. McLaren successful last year at an outright level. Ford Mustangs was strong as well, but there's some wild cards in the mix this year. That Porsche from TechWorks Motorsport has been very, very strong with Nash Morris and Zoe Woods driving there on the outside of the second row. Watch out for Rylan Gray on the inside, but that Audi with Blake Purdy, the young South Aussie behind the wheel, has been super strong all weekend long.
Yeah, he has. Now, I think they're going to have to really bunch up here because there seem to be a few cars napping, actually, that were still stuck at Siberia as everyone's just trying to get on the back of the train here. There's still, I think, quite a few cars that we can see in the back of the shot that need to get on the train as we get around the final corner, maintaining that speed of 80 kilometres an hour. The safety car entered the lane 2x2 formation as they roll over the grid boxes, and we're not far away here from a start, Krause.
What a sight it is. 8 different manufacturers, 9 models, and a brand new year for Monochrome. GT4 Australia launches at Phillip Island, and it's a great start from the outside of the front row, the inside of the racetrack, but will sweep across in front is the Nippy's Audi R8, will lead the race for the first time, and a very good start. Rylan Gray in the Lubramax Mustang 2 jumps in front of Tommy Heyman in the Method Motorsport McLaren and moves himself up the order. Cameron Crick there in the D.A. Campbell Transport Racing Mustang has got some ground. Daniel Frugas is in the Supra, making its debut on the outside. First race for that car. Jake Camilleri's in there too. Clean start through 1, 2 and 3, but there's always action down here at the hairpin at turn 4. Seaton looking down the inside, GT stripes on the SS signs. Gomersal Motorsport car, the Silver Am class leader. Lockie Dalton's in there. The McLaren looking for a move on Rylan Gray, but Blake Purdy serenely out in front.
Excellent start for Purdy. Even Rylan Gray up to second. Tom Heyman just dropped a wheel off the extra Siberia. We saw a lot of people covering into Honda as you do on the first lap, and that can actually sometimes help you if you're on the outside when everyone banks up on the inside. Relatively clean. Look a bit sideways in the background there. I think that might have been Camilleri potentially, but everyone's managed to hang on to it, and so far everyone's been relatively clean on this opening lap.
I'll tell you who it was having a big moment was Josh Buchan in the Zagami Motorsport, Zagami Autosport McLaren Artura. Had the big slide on the outside of the hay shed. He was sort of pushed wide off the racing line there as they battled for position. That'd get your attention on cold tyres. Cole Pirelli's early in the race.
Purdy moving to the left-hand side, trying to break the toe from Rylan Gray, who, like we said, had a pretty good start getting past Heyman. Heyman's dropped 2 spots off the start, so our pole man back to third. Nash Morris there in 4th position. He had to cover off Aaron Seaton on the way into turn number 4, Miller corner on the start, but Heyman now really putting the pressure on Rylan Gray, and just looking at the 2 cars nose to tail, they look so vastly different, don't they? One's so much smaller than the other. And I think that's the great thing about this class, that they have their advantages and, you know, their strengths and weaknesses in different areas of the tracks, which makes this category so appealing.
Nash Morris had a big dive down the inside there at turn 4 at the hairpin. Lockie Dalton was doing the same a little bit further back on the back of Aaron Seaton. And that's that battle there with the Buckby Motors Mercedes AMG. So Audi leads the way for the first time in GT4 Australia history. Rylan Gray next for Ford. McLaren third, Porsche next, then another Ford, then the first of the Mercedes AMGs. Go back a couple of spots and you find the number 9 GWR Australia, Daniel Frugas Toyota Supra. Another car making its debut and running very strongly. Everyone even, different makes, different models, different philosophies in getting performance, but the balance of performance works so well to drag everyone together, and that McLaren just looking to get the nose up the inside there on the Lubramax Mustang. That car fires out of turn 12 so well.
It does. Now, that McLaren in the final sector through MG and through turn 11, that's really a strength of the car, and the Mustang just really stretches its legs on the straight. So Heyman's going to have to be really strategic about this and work out, okay, I'm going to need to probably pass him, if he can, into somewhere like turn 4 Miller corner or Siberia, and see if he can hold him off through MG and try and get that gap. But Aaron Seaton in the Silver Am leading the class there with Lockie Dalton in behind him, but they're all doing very similar lap times, that sort of mid-35s. Blake Purdy out in front, a low 35.1 with that clear air. Try not to look in the mirrors, eyes forward, hit your marks, clean, consistent laps. As we see, is that Buchan down the inside of Frugas. for position number 8, and he'll be trying now to get onto the back of Cameron Crick in the 118 Ford. So that's the battle from 5th to 9th outright, is that Silver Am class lead that Aaron Seaton currently holds over Lockie Dalton. And that's actually quite close on the track. They're separated by about half a second. And here we can see how quick Heyman is around these corners going over Lukey Heights. Really puts the pressure on. He can brake so late, so deep into MG. And as he gets out of there, he's trying actually for a switchback now out of turn 11. Whether or not he can actually get it done, it's a hard thing, Crailsey, to try and be side by side at the last corner here.
It's good to see Josh Buchan making some moves, the double TCR Australia champion. A couple of rounds with Zagami last year as they got their GT4 program off the ground. Vastly experienced guy in top-level professional motorsport now. Good guy to be around. Loves the microphone too, does Josh. I'm sure we'll see him pop up in the broadcast at some point over the course of the year. Buckby Motors, Mercedes AMG in the mix as well. And then just behind them is Cam Crick, who's doing a super job, made his supercars solo driver debut at Sydney Motorsport Park at the start of the year for Matt Stone Racing in a wildcard outfit. He'll be in that car again come the Enduros a little bit later on the season. And he and Dean Campbell have been racing together for a long time. Dean out of Bathurst in country New South Wales. Lots of production car experience in a BMW. This is a different animal for them. They had a really good test day at Winton earlier in the week though, and feel like they're learning a lot about this Ford Mustang, and they'll be a combo that as the year goes on are just going to get better and better.
Yeah, the more miles you do in these cars, you just get more and more used to the characteristics, the traits, where you can push, you know, where to find the limits, and they'd all have their own unique areas of trying to finesse and find where you can improve lap time. We've got the two BMWs of Tim Lay and Ryder Quinn fighting over. As Quinn goes down the inside, he's just got past Tim Lay a bit earlier in the lap, and he's gone down the inside of Nathan Morecambe. So moving up through the field, another big mover is Jared Hughes, who, as we touched on earlier, started in last, or 29th position. Only 29 that have taken the start, and he's up in a 16th position. So there's still 48 minutes left in the race. That's a pretty impressive first 3 laps in the Mercedes.
He carved his way through the field. Summer Rental to take over that car for the second half of the race. Looking forward to seeing how she goes.
How's all the gravel that's offline there on that extra bit of tarmac? Sorry to chime in there, Crailsey.
I don't know if you watched the Porsche race. There was a bit going on that dragged some gravel onto the road, so they haven't had an opportunity with a very tightly packed program here today at the Shannon Speed Series to clear the racetrack. So you definitely want to stay on the racing line through the Southern Loop. If you haven't followed Monochrome GT4 Australia before, there's a mandatory pit stop in the middle of the race. The pit stop window is 25 to 35 minutes, and you can choose to stop early. There's a little bit of an undercut going on. There's not so much in terms of tyres, but track position can play a role. And if you're in traffic, you could be inclined to stop your car early to get yourself out of it and put your co-driver in a bit of clean air a little bit further back in the field. But if you've got the faster of your two drivers in the car, you want to keep them in there as long as you possibly can. Now, minute 35 odd for a lap here at Phillip Island Grand Prix. So 10 minutes, could be 6 or 7 laps worth of race-winning pace that could get you that overcut after you get the pit stop. So while they're short races, while there is only one pit stop, and while there's only a 10-minute window to get it done, there are some strategic thinkings you can take into this as Jared Hughes continues to pick his way through the field.
That's 2 in 1 lap there, Crailsey, from Jared Hughes. We're side by side through the last corner, and just to touch on the pit stop with that window that's open for 10 minutes, and that will open in about 11 minutes from now. So there's 46 minutes remaining, and the pit lane will open 25 minutes into the race start. So that'll be with 35 minutes to go. And we saw last year that there was quite a lot of variance, Crailsey, with strategy in the GT4 class, where some people would pit early, others would pit late. I think if you're probably in the top 4 or 5 or 6, you might try and extend, go as long as possible, but then you run the risk of a safety car as well. So there's a bit of a gamble for when you want to pit, but we'll see later on in GD World Challenge Australia powered by AWS that the pit window's only 5 minutes. So these guys get double that time. And there's Jared Hughes doing another move on Tim Lay. He's up into 13th now. So he's got a little battle pack in front of him, trying to now get on the back of Nathan Morecambe and then Jake Camilleri.
It's Triple Eight Race Engineering running the Mercedes AMG. He's going to squeeze up the inside on the run to the hay shed there, but there's no space. Nathan Morecambe well awares to that. Meanwhile, Heyman with the big send at MG, and does he finally get it done? Or does he get hung out to dry here? Around the outside at 11. Can he hang around the outside at turn 12? Ryland Gray giving him racing room, but it's not going to be enough. And try as he might, the Method Motorsport McLaren has to continue to look at the tail end of that Ford Mustang.
He's trying everything at the moment, isn't he? So close to getting that move done, but yeah, the Ford just so strong on the straights, but the McLaren is so quick in the corners. So, like I said, it's a battle of trying to work out where you can, A, get the move done and see if you can build some small gap that he can't fight back on the straight. So he's really putting the pressure on Ryland Gray. That was a nice little exchange between the two, nice and clean. And hopefully it can stay that way for probably the next 10 or so minutes of their battle before they head into the pit lane. And that's something that the teams are going to have to monitor, because they're probably going to pit on different laps. And that's something that the teams have just got to be on top of.
So if you're Method Motorsport, so Chaz has mossed it on the radio going, all right, we'll do the opposite of what the Lubrimax car does in front. So there's no point for a timed pit stop when you've got the same amount of time in pit lane as the car you're racing. You can make up or lose time on the racetrack, but in pit lane, unlike a Formula 1 race or a supercar race, pit lane isn't potentially going to win you the race. So I would imagine try and stay out, do the opposite. Even if it's one lap of clean air, that McLaren may be a little bit quicker than the Mustang, and you could jump them after that pit stop sequence.
Well, there's that, but also Mediki put it on pole in his qualifying, so...
Well, George will be fast.
Correct.
No doubt about it. But so too will be Maxi Gagan, who'll take over the reigning GR Cup champion. So bright young talent, and that's the thing with these cars in particular, very evenly matched driver combinations. So we're 14.5 minutes into the opening race of a brand new season in the Monochrome GT4 Australia Championship. Blake Purdy leads the way, and indeed the Silver Cup from Ryland Gray and Tom Heyman. Aaron Seaton on top in Silver Am in front of Cam Crick and Lockie Dalton, and the Am class being led by Bailey Love, Chris Lillis and Jamie Augustine. As we continue to race our way to the pit stop, that's the margin the Audi's got. And these are all valuable, valuable laps for Blake Purdy, who'll hand over to Daniel Price. But Daniel did an outstanding job in his qualifying session. So if he can be handed over the Nippies car in the lead of this race, he's going to be in a really good position to hold on to it.
Absolutely. And the top three at the moment, Crailsy, not in the same order, but that was essentially the top three in that second qualifying session, which are the drivers that will be hopping in these cars in the next sort of 10, 15 minutes time. So...
And even to that point, Zoe Woods,
correct,
alongside Nash Morris. Zoe did an outstanding job in her qualifying session in that TechWorks Porsche, the 718 Club Sport.
Someone else to look out for will be the 36. Well, they actually opted to start. So Jake Camilleri started this race where he actually qualified in the second qualifying session. So another car to monitor, that Mercedes, the number 36 Mercedes, which is currently in 12th. And Jared Hughes is almost in the top 10. He's up to 11th position. So that's a pretty impressive drive. We're only 7 laps in, or about just crossed completing 8 laps. And he's up from 29th on the grid to 11th. And unfortunately, looks like Courtney Prince has entered the lane. So I'm not sure what's happened to the Janetta there. She unfortunately, well, it was a late entry.
Yeah.
She didn't even drive yesterday and qualified this morning, qualified cold. But they're unfortunately out. They've actually been in the pits for nearly 3 minutes now.
She's a ripper little race car driver, Courtney, and just one of those talents stymied by lack of funding, but had a really good season in one-make Porsche racing for a while there, was very competitive. Had a class win at the Bathurst 6 Hour last year in the production car race, and also had a very strong weekend in. So looking forward to seeing what she can do in that Janetta. Hopefully that's a program that can build over the course of the year. And cool to see the Janetta still on the grid as well. 2 of them this weekend. Lockie Manif currently running 15th outright and in the Silver Am class as well.
Bailey Love's also had an impressive drive. He's up to 17th and leading the Am class as well in that Mercedes. And Steen actually out-qualified him. So that's been a really good turnaround. So he's got a nice just over 2-second margin on Jamie Augustine, with Lillis there in third in class in the 777 Porsche, but out in front, Blake Purdy, over 4 seconds up the road. And this race, Crailsey, considering it's the first race of the year, there are no pit stop compensation times. So every car will be doing effectively the same time in pit lane.
It's a good point you make, Tom, because tomorrow that will come into effect. So if you win your class today, you get whacked with a little bit of extra pit stop time. If you're second, it's a little bit less. If you're third, it's 5 seconds. So 15, 10 and 5 extra time you need to spend in the lane. So it's a success penalty, absolutely. It levels the playing field though and opens the door to other contenders to get themselves into the race. And last year it provided some fascinating results up and down the field as we see Cody Bircher look to make a move on the back of the, it's Tim Lace, sorry, who Timmy has started that car. Cody will jump into that for the second half of the race, and he's running with Jake Camilleri, the Mobil 1 Mercedes AMG. Jake, the Queenslander, Grand Prix group up there of car dealerships. Started out as a Mazda dealer with a super hot Mazda 3 MPS production car that would often knock off Turbo Evos. He's a really super driver, is Jake. And great to have him and his team as part of Monochrome GT4 Australia. Racing our way towards the pit stops in the opening race of the brand new season for Monochrome GT4. Blake Purdy has extended his lead to 3.5 seconds now over Ryland Gray. The Audi doing an awesome job. Ford Mustang next, with the Ford family here and present and watching on as they celebrate a massive milestone. This battle continues. They've got to lap traffic, so they've got to Nathan Murray in the Morris car run by McElrea Racing, AM class contender, getting lapped. But this is the fight between Tom Heyman and Ryland Gray, second and third place, both in silver and indeed in the race outright. And maybe this is the opportunity Tom Heyman's been looking for. Use that traffic, try and use that as a way to squeeze his way past that big Mustang rear wing he's been jammed up behind for all of the race.
That looks like Palermo that's gone off at the turn 2 there, Southern Loop. Whether or not he's just backed it in and try and get that thing out of there. Hopefully doesn't get beached in the gravel, but looked like a pretty harmless one to the car. He'll just press on. But this lovely battle pack that we've got here between Gray and Heyman. Heyman would have been hoping, like you said, to use that lap traffic to do something with it, but the Ford just really gets off turn 2. Ryland's been driving that car exceptionally well, and he's still holding that second position, and the gap now 5.6 seconds out in front.
Let's go down to the lane. Here's Chris Stubbs.
Well, on the theme of Mustangs, Dean Campbell has made the move into a Mustang and Monochrome GT4 Australia. Dean, Quicky's in the car at the moment. How have you found it being behind a Ford?
Oh, fantastic. What a credit to Ford and the Medeckis for bringing these out here, and the Ford family's here this weekend. Good to see. Mustangs are growing, and hopefully we can push them to the front.
We've seen you be so successful and have so much fun in production car racing. To make this change into a grid of 31, it's a category that just keeps growing. What was the attraction for you?
Well, that was the thing. We've started off in production. You know, when I first started with Cam, he was in 86s. I was in production cars. We came together. He grew into, he's into supercars now. I've stepped up here to this GT4 series. We wanted more competition. We wanted faster cars, and look, this is where it's at, and it'll force us to do, better things.
You two are great mates. You've had such a long connection together. You've suffered the highs and the lows of motorsport together. How proud are you of him being in supercars now?
Oh, mate, to be honest, I love seeing him succeed, and part of this whole thing is our mateship, seeing him do well. I always want to see him move up the chain, and sadly he'll probably have to move on to supercars and I'll have to get another co-driver, but I really love seeing him do well. He's a good friend.
Dino, you've got to get in the car. The team is just coming to give me the wrap because it's almost that time. Go well.
No worries, thank you.
I'm joined alongside Daniel Price, Blake Purdy out there in first position. How pleased are you with how he's been tracking this weekend?
Yeah, look, I didn't doubt him. The kid can drive quite well. So, yeah, look forward to sort of getting in and doing my job.
Yeah, I spoke to you prior to this and you said, you know, you expected this sort of result from the pair of you this morning. What made you so confident heading into this weekend?
Oh, we've known each other like quite a few years, and yeah, I think all we know is trying to win. So we only had that mentality coming here.
And what's the plan of attack for yourself when you get in there after this?
Yeah, look, it's been a couple of years since I raced, so I just want to get out there and not look behind and just get a couple of laps under my belt and then settle down.
All right, well, good luck. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Isabella Lembrugen with Daniel Price as there's some battles going on up and down the field. Daniel's a very, very successful karter and spent some time in the Aussie Racing Car Series as well. And this is a little bit of a comeback of sorts for him in terms of GT racing, top-level GT racing, and he's formed a really good partnership with Blake Purdy. We've been looking at all sorts of battles on the timing screen, Tom, and you've been busy pointing out stuff on the timing monitor because the fight's still on for second and third outright and in silver class, but the AM fight between Bailey Love and Jamie Augustine is going off, and that's what we're looking at now.
Yeah, we're looking at the timing screen there, and Augustine's finally got that move done on Bailey Love, so he now essentially takes the lead in the AM class, and probably wanted to get that done a little bit earlier, but nice move, nice and clean, and it's been quite a calm race so far, Crailsey. Everyone's kept it pretty clean, but I think if you look at the battle between Heyman and Gray, that's still just within that half a second battle, and Tom would be getting pretty frustrated, I think, seeing the rear wing of that Ford Mustang GT4 for what's been 25 minutes, as the pit lane, I think, is nearly open.
Very close. We'll get it in a minute's time. The pit window will open and race control will notify the crews of that, and they'll be able to make the stop as we watch this battle a little bit further down the field. This is for 21st and 22nd. It's 5th and 6th place in the AM class. So the Mercedes-AMG versus the BMW. I just want to come back to as well to Stubbsy's chat with Dean Campbell. We talked about them at the start of the race, and it does feel inevitable that at some point he's going to lose his little buddy as a co-driver because he's going to end up in bigger and better things. And also, you can't really run pros in GT4, so at some point he'll become too good and rated too high to be in the category. But it's so cool to see those guys progress into GT4, and yeah, he said he wanted more competition and more performance. Well, he definitely got more performance, and 31 cars on the entry list this weekend. He got the more competition box as well, but right now they're second in the Silver AM class with Cam Crick behind the wheel doing a nice job. So they're right in the mix for a trophy today.
Yeah, Cam Crick's such a great steerer. He's an awesome person. He's one of the most hard-working guys in the lane. I think he's always on his phone trying to do some sort of deal, or, you know, he made his debut as well in the Supercars Championship as a wild card at round 1. As we're just looking at Roland Gray really on the defensive now through MG, and Heyman trying to do that switchback again, but I feel like he's just going to fall to the same feet as what he went to before with that. I think Gray's in the lane.
In the lane, and the window has just opened. So he squeaked in to start the compulsory pit stop. So we talked early, didn't we? Do the opposite of what the Mustang does. Heyman stays out, Gray the first to pit. So he's taken that opportunity to serve the compulsory pit stop first. George Miedeke will jump behind the wheel. Heyman out. So Tommy now needs to get his head down and punch out a couple of really good laps. He's got clear racetrack in front, clean air they call it. So he can drive that thing really hard, and knowing that both he and the Mustang have got to serve that 122nd mandatory pit stop time. This could be the opportunity for car 25 to drop car 100, and there could be a position change at the end of the stops. We'll find out how that plays out in about 8.5 minutes time. Meanwhile, that gets Nash Morris up the order a little bit in the TechWorks Porsche, and he's being harassed by Aaron Seaton, and it's good to see Aaron back behind the wheel. He stepped away from driving last year for a little while, a little pause, but the expansion of SRO Motorsport has meant that he's jumped back behind the wheel, and Aaron driving as well as he always has. He was super in Trans Am cars. He and Nathan Hearn had some unbelievable battles over their journey. Had a crack at Super 2 Championship. Of course, son of the great Glenn, who is in the paddock as well. Always good to see Cito in and about. One of the absolute gurus of suspension tuning in Australian motorsport is Glenn. So we watch the tough lift McLaren. Zach Suter behind the wheel. His old TCR rival Lockie Maneve just in front, actually. So A couple of drivers coming across from TCR into Monochrome GT4.
These guys are still battling hard, aren't they? Crailsey, Tim Lay and Camilleri, as we see the number 100 Ford GT4 of Graham Mediki. Mediki now taking over the reins and leaving pit lane. Now, number 100 is on the car this weekend, as they made it aware earlier today or this weekend. You know, 100 years of Ford in Australia, so a massive achievement and celebration for Ford. There's some big Ford executives here this weekend. Bill Ford, Will Ford, they're here today, and for them to run 100 on the car is pretty special. So let's see where they pop out. And Heyman's gone around for another lap as well, Crailsey. So trying to make the most of that clear air like you spoke about. And Mediki's just had to get past that Ginetta, and the car just squirming into turn 2 there. But Mediki's got a bit of traffic in front of him now. So let's see how this plays out.
These are critical laps for Tom Heyman. We'll get a lap time check as they come around again if he stays out. But he actually took time out of the race leader last time by. So in clean air, that McLaren freed from the back of the Ford Mustang and now pressing on. Tony Quinn is in the lane. The great man, TQ, in his brand new Toyota Supra. So too Tim Lay, who jumps out of the Central West Prestige BMW. And we'll plug Philo orange-based driver Cody Birch back in. There's a little bit of intensity on the timing screen as well, Tom. So Josh Buchan, in advance of the pit stop, has just set a personal best middle sector. And that's the thing with this Pirelli tyre. It allows you just to keep pushing on over the whole race distance. Now, you're pointing out the Method Motorsport 24 car with Nathan Morecambe. And you're suggesting perhaps, I'm getting from all the waving that's going on in the commentary box, that perhaps some team play going on, intentional or otherwise. But what it's doing is holding Mediki up so that Tom Heyman in clean air, who's just done a 35.2, does a huge moment, massive moment on the exit of the final corner, and will end up gently nerfing the tyres and will get away with what could have been a massive, massive accident.
Geez, that was lucky there, Crailsey. I was teasing the prospect.
Poor
Morecambe was maybe just trying to make life a little bit more challenging for Mediki, being, well, I guess, teammates with Heyman. And we didn't see that one coming. Well, that was a huge moment into the last corner. So lucky to gather that up. Didn't fully spin. You can still see there's heaps of dirt and gravel that he's trying to get off his tyres, but that's the last thing that they needed when they just pitted, just done the driver change, and they were in the fight, Crailsey. They were in it for a top 2 position at the time.
Oh boy, wowie, that was huge. Mediki got away with one. And it's rare you can do that at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. Working our way through the pit stop shuffle here at Phillip Island. Blake Purdy, Tom Heyman, Nash Morris, the top 3 in race 1 of Monochrome GT4 Australia. We're just catching our breath. The race car driver in the commentary box here is shaking his head because he knows what that feels like. And this place is fearsome. It is one of the fastest racetracks in the Southern Hemisphere. And it is rare that you have a wild moment at a 200k an hour corner and you drive out the other side. And that's what George Mediki has done. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. George Mediki's both of those things today.
Well, we saw in qualifying 2, the Wallace Mustang at the last corner lost, well, basically spat it to the inside and hit the concrete wall. So George was very lucky. Probably got out of the throttle once he knew that he'd lost the back end, and then it sort of corrected the other way, but to hang on to it enough that he literally just kissed the tyre barriers and press on with it with, you would say, minimal, if any, damage. Very lucky to get away with that one at that corner. Normally you don't see cars end up still straight after having moments like that out of turn 12.
Well, and the margin between that and having an accident like we saw with the Wallace Mustang earlier is tiny, isn't it? The gap is, it's 1% between getting away with it like George did and ending up parked in the concrete on the other side of the road.
And they were, that from about 2nd to 7th, Crailsey was so close. So
yeah,
with the way the pit stops are today, that everyone serves the same 120 seconds, that's going to cost a lot of time.
Tom Heyman is flying as the leader pits, so Blake Purdy peels the Audi off. The margin had come down to 3.1 seconds from almost 5. So in clean air, Tom Heyman had great pace and just sets his quickest lap of the race for that car, and he stays out another lap. So he's taking advantage of the clean air in the Method Motorsport McLaren. Purdy in the lane, Crick in the lane as well, so the leaders starting to filter their way through.
You can't assume that Heyman will be doing too many more laps now.
We'll run out of time.
As we see the number 9 Toyota just going down the inside of the Mercedes. I think that was a lapped car there.
Nice pass. Let's go down to Stubbsy.
Thank you. Rylan Gray, I think we've just had a new order of underpants down here to this garage because, wow, George, that was a massive moment. You know the sport well. What was your reaction when you saw that? That was wild.
Yeah, it was a pretty wild moment, I'd say. Like, that happened to a guy in qualifying and he ended up in the wall, unfortunately, for them. So, yeah, it was pretty lucky to just keep it off the fence out there and keep going. So, yeah, bit of a heart-mouth moment.
How did you find it out there? You're in a bit of a sandwich. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. It was hard work out there with a little McLaren behind. It was a bit better than us, but yeah, you know, it was a lot to keep it behind, but ended up doing that, handed over to George and just see him bring it home.
Great job, mate. Well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Stubbsy. Chatting to young Rylan Gray, super impressive young bloke. Caught up with his dad, Jeremy, a racer in his own right, very successful in production car and GT racing. Proud of his young boy and the career that he's forging at the moment. Into the lane comes Tom Heyman, so Method Motorsport will complete their pit stop for the race leader. Morris is in for TechWorks. Seaton is in for Gomersal Motorsport and the Mustang. Hughes, Buchan as well, Dalton and Quinn. So the pit stop window is closing and they've got to get themselves into pit lane. So this race will start to play itself out. We'll get an understanding of where everyone stands in the leaderboard for the run home, with this race still very much up in the air. The leaders are in the lane. Tom Heyman pits the Method Motorsport McLaren. He had a 4.5 second lead. The key rejoin is going to be Price in the Audi versus Heyman in the McLaren. That is what it will be. Now at 120 seconds, with a 1:35 lap, you're basically going a lap down when you make your pit stop. So Price has got a long way to go to make up time, but Blake Purdy was absolutely flying on his in-lap, and he really attacked to get that car into the lane. But Tom Heyman set his car's quickest lap of the race on lap 18, which is the lap they were on. So he's on the 19th lap, has peeled off into the lane. So we need to follow the Audi versus the McLaren. That is going to be the rejoin. That's where the race will be won or lost. And Heyman, running in clean air, went very, very long in that pit stop sequence right to the end of the window. There's the McLaren. So pit stop window closes, exits the lane, clock ticks down. There's the Audi. This is how close the rejoin's going to be. Price gets to the line now at speed, and there is Max Gagan, and that will be for the net race lead. That's how close it was. That's how much time Tom Heyman made up by staying out and running in clean air. They were 4 seconds apart before all that went down, and now it's just a couple of car lengths. But Gagan has come out, the car having been sat stationary for more than a minute in the lane. So he just needs to be careful on this outlap, get those tyres back up to their peak operating pressure, and then set out in a battle for the lead and the silver class win. So we've got a car race on our hands now, folks. It's all shaken out really well. And down the inside, squeezing down the inside, is the Mobil 1 Mercedes AMG of Jake Camilleri, who's battling with Zoe Woods, who's taken over from Nash Morris in the TechWorks Porsche, with Ceilings by Design jumping onto the side of that car this weekend. And there's contact just on the outside between the two Queenslanders. Is there room for Camilleri to squeeze past at the hay shed? This is big. Side by side through there. Good respect given by both drivers. And Camilleri will take that spot away, and that is for third place.
Great move there, around the outside of the hay shed. That's a tricky one to complete. You've got to have full faith in the car that's on your inside, that they've actually spotted you and seen you. And here's the Ford GT4 of Gomersall now, who's in the behind Zoe Woods. So watch and see him stretch the Ford Mustang's legs down the straight. And this battle has really spiced up now, Crailsey, between the top two. Like you said, before the pit stops had begun, that gap was out to over 4.5 seconds, as we knew the Heyman McLaren was stuck behind Ryland Gray.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Gagan with a great run through turn one. Price still getting up to speed. He has also just taken over the Nippy's Audi. This for the race lead. The 15-second time penalty has gone the way to Christopher Whitaker. That's the Ginetta that he's sharing with Mark Cottrell, the jeweller who presented the championship ring to the winners in GT4 last year. Very, very cool bit of kit. Speeding in pit lane, we understand, is the thing there. They've been very, very strict on that this weekend, as they should be. Several $1,000s worth of fines handed down yesterday for people attacking that pit lane speed limiter line at 40 k's an hour, and some of them were 20 odd k's over the limit. This is the fight for the lead, though. Price versus Gagan. Two drivers at different points of their career. Price with a great history in karting at a very high, very professional level, and then circuit racing in Aussie cars, among other things. Max Gagan, very much on the way up, reigning champion in the GR Cup in one-make racing, and carrying with him a great surname with so much history. This is a good fight.
It is. Gagan was flashing the headlights out of turn 3 down to Miller Corner in turn number 4, trying to, as we like to think as drivers, psych out the car in front. Now, whether or not it works is another question, but we like to think it does, as Price has been handed a 10-second time penalty.
Yep, speeding in pit lane. It's another one. So, and that will be, I would suggest, Blake Purdy on the entry. It's always the entry lane here at Phillip Island because it's such a long run off turn 11, and you can really attack that pit lane speed limit line, the 40k line. And often that's where they will ping you for going over. You have to be at 40k's at that line. And it's a long way out from where the pit lane actually starts, isn't it? So they work pretty hard to get slowed down. If you're a couple of k's over, you'll get done. It's interesting that they only cop 10. Well, it probably showcases the margin of error involved in that the Whitaker car got 15 seconds. So I wonder if they were a little bit further over that limit. As Gagan goes around the outside now and has a huge moment. He's basically going to be gifted the race lead here. Cannot afford to drop it.
Yeah, I think the crew needed to tell Gagan that, hey, Price has a 10-second time penalty, so just take it easy. They're over 5 seconds clear of third place, so either try and get the move done cleanly, no risk, or just sit in behind and you're guaranteed effectively the race win if it stays the way it does now, because there's no point trying to risk it. You've done all the hard work. There's only about 17, just over 17 minutes to go. Keep it clean. Try and just minimize mistakes. If you can put Price under pressure and get past, like I said, with no risk, then that's fine. But the last thing you want to do is more of what we just saw out of Siberia and risk trying to get something wrong, as we see a 5-second penalty now for car 71. That's Gomersall. So whether or not that's another speeding in pit lane.
I was going to say, would you like to guess what that's for?
They're all different penalties, though. Must be 1 kilometre over, 5 kilometres over.
Oh, let's go back down to the lane. Here's Bella.
Side Jared Hughes. Jared started from last on the grid there, managed to work your way up to top 5. Can you just talk to us, why were you back there in the first place?
Yeah, unfortunately we had a bit of an incident qualifying, a little bit out of our control, got brake checked, or swerved in front of them, brake checked. Didn't really cause too much damage to start with, but I think one of the parts in the front bumper pierced the radiator, so we had to come in and swap that out, which unfortunately didn't give us a qualifying result, but yeah, got 30th to 5th I think it was, so it's really good to get some more spots up for Summer when she hopped in the car just then.
Yeah, so talk us through, how were you able to work your way from back all the way to the front?
I just hang on, I think. No, it was good. The Triple Eight boys have given us an awesome car, and yeah, just picked them off one by one. Just want to make sure I kept the front end in one piece this time, so just, yeah, picked my spots, and yeah, we're able to pick up quite a few spots, so hopefully Summer can do a good job with where we're at now.
So yeah, you and Summer are a pair of young guns. What's it like being a teammate with Summer?
Oh, it's awesome. I've known Summer and their family for about 4.5 years now, and they've been the whole reason that I'm still racing. So it's great to sort of try and give back as much as I can, help Summer along the way. But it's awesome to do with these guys. They're such a great bunch of people, and yeah, wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Well done. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Cheers.
great character. Thanks, Isabella. To Jared Hughes down there. He's done a little bit of TV work as well, has young Jared in his GR Cup racing, and another young racing car driver loves the camera. Gagan looks to the outside. Price gets boxed in with some traffic here. Threads the eye of the needle. The McLaren around the outside. This is big. Price is clinging on for dear life. He's got 10 seconds to be added to his race time. They punch on the run to turn 3. Over 200 k's an hour down there. So he'll get 10 seconds added to his race time. So he's still fighting for a big result here, potentially. So that's why he is digging in. He's got every right to do it as well, by the way, because who knows? Gagan could be on the list for a pit lane limiter penalty at some point as well, but he finally gets through, and the Method Motorsport McLaren now takes the lead.
Well, that's the way this is going, Crazily. It's kind of a case of you get a penalty, you get a penalty, everyone gets a penalty. So with 14, just under 15 minutes remaining now, nice move there from Gagan. They were hip and shoulder, but he's managed to get past Price. And Price is going to want to hang on here, try and extend that gap back to third.
A great race unfolding in Monochrome GT4. Your class leaders, Max Gagan now on top in the silver class. Jason Gomersal still leading the way in silver AM, and Jacob Lawrence for BMW on top in the AM class. Into the lane comes the Toyota Supra with a right front puncture. Tim Berryman making a little comeback from hiatus from Motorsport Farmer from country New South Wales. He's got an F5000 in the garage, cool Lola that he rocks out at historic events, but decided it was the time to make a little comeback in this program with Garth Walton Racing. So a new right front Pirelli going on here. Well, it's a tyre that gets some abuse at this venue, Tom Randall.
Yeah, it's not the first time we've seen a right front puncture. Now, whether or not there has been some sort of contact, whether he's gone over some debris or it's just the right front has just been overworked potentially. This track is anti-clockwise, so the right front or the loaded side, the right-hand side does do most of the work. Those last two corners, over the top, Lukey Heights, turn 2, Southern Loop, turn 3, Siberia, and then those two really long corners onto the main straight. All it can take as well, Crazy, is if you drop off over the curb, the sawtooth curbs on the exit at somewhere like turn 12, that can just grab that sidewall and do some damage, which can be an instant puncture or, you know, like a slow leak, which then can lead to a failure. So unfortunately, that's cost them of a half-decent result, and they're all the way down now in, at the moment, 23rd position.
Yeah, oh, that was a big moment, and that's for position 2. That's the Zagami McLaren. So that has changed hands. Josh Buchan started that car and had a really good drive through the field. But that was a little bit hip and shoulder down there at Siberia, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I tell you what, Price is hanging in here with Gagan. He has not left him in his sights. And that gap, if you look at the gap now, back to 4th, is about 11.8 seconds. So worst case scenario, if it was to finish like this, Price would be safe for 4th. He'd lose 3rd. Oh, sorry, he would finish 3rd as Camilleri would move up to 2nd. So it's not all bad. The last thing he'd want, though, is a safety car. Having said that, more breaking news. The swift hand of justice is unfolding. It's a stop-and-go penalty, 24 seconds. Stop-and-go penalty for car 36. That's Jake Camilleri you were just talking about, and that is for a breach in CPS regulations. So a breach in the compulsory pit stop. So normally time, they didn't get that 120 seconds right. So that is a huge penalty. Scratch Jake Camilleri in the Mobil 1 Mercedes AMG, because that will drop him a long, long way down the field and will pop Zoe Woods back up into 3rd position in silver and indeed in the race outright. And this is helping the 87 Mercedes of Summer Rintel and Jared Hughes.
Yeah.
Started off the back, 29th, and they're up into 6th at the moment. So if you add those penalties of Price, if he can hang on to 2nd, but now Camilleri with that drive or that stop and go penalty, so that's very severe. So be interested to know just how under they were in that mandatory pit stop. We did touch on that it's 120 seconds that you need to be stationary for. So you're in the lane for quite a long time, but all it takes is if you're a couple of seconds under that, then we get a slam dunk penalty. So unfortunately, that's put them out of a good result.
And the reason we're looking at the 24, we were looking at the 24 method car, they're getting a drive-through for a CPS breach as well. So they've been busy in Motorsport Australia race control upstairs today. James Taylor, the race director, and the racing stewards just looking at the regulations and making sure everyone plays the game. 10 minutes remain. Max Gagan, the leader. Just 7/10 of a second between the Method Motorsport McLaren Artura and the Nippies Audi R8 GT4 in a battle for the race lead in the opening race in Monochrome GT4 Australia for 2025. Having said that, there's a 10-second time penalty to be added to the car in second, so that will drop them a little bit down the order, but there's penalties to come. Jake Camilleri will serve a drive-through penalty and a 24-second stop-go, basically, for a breach of the compulsory pit stop regulations. And also news through car 24, which is the second of the Method Motorsport cars, will also serve a drive-through. In fact, I think they've already been through the lane. So plenty of drama in this opening race in Monochrome GT4 Australia. Richard Crail and Tom Randall with less than 10 minutes to go. It's been an enjoyable start to the season. So many storylines have unfolded in this one, and it's only race one of a long year. 6 rounds, 12 races still to go.
Well, this could be a case of everyone just dusting off the cobwebs, I think, with all these penalties. Pit lane penalties, drive-throughs, speeding in pit lane, mandatory pit stop time. And you know who this has really helped and benefited is George Madiki, who after that massive moment that we saw off the final corner, he's up into 4th position on the road, and if we take Camilleri out of it once they serve their penalty, that'll put him back up into the podium position. So to think that he went from essentially a spin or half spin, touching the wall at the last corner, to getting on the podium, that's a hell of a fight back.
Yeah, good recovery. And they're the drives that will win you a championship at the end of the year, is, you know, minimising the bad races and maximising the really good ones. So if you survive a wild off, then that is huge. Around the outside, Cody Bircher on Dean Campbell. This is 4th position, 8th and 9th on the road. Gomesel's mixed up in this a little bit further up the road in the Mustang. Some lap Mercedes AMGs. They're trying to duck and dive around. That's Rob Love behind the wheel of the number 17. Love's entry. The red and white sort of floral livery. And Campbell now looking down the inside. He's second in the Silver Am class. And just in behind that orange BMW, the Black Wolf Racing car, is Steve Jackick after a really good start to the race for Ryder Quinn in that car. Stepson Ryder up to 3rd place in the Silver Am class. They're all trying to hunt down Jason Gomesel because he's got a 5-second time penalty coming his way as well. We've just seen another time penalty go the way of car 9. That's the GWR Toyota Supra GT4, and that was for speeding in pit lane. I would take a guess that would be leaving the lane potentially after putting that new right front on that car. Speculating, but either way, 4 pit lane speed infringements currently applied. We haven't seen Camilleri in the lane yet either, Tom, and I wonder if that team's wandered up to have an argument before serving that penalty. Because a drive-through, you can have a time penalty sometimes redressed. Drive-through penalties you cannot have taken away from you. So,
well, if you get served a drive-through penalty, let's say too late in the race, that'll be converted to 40 seconds added to the elapsed finishing time of the car. So,
but if you don't serve it within the 3 laps,
normally
they're going to wipe you out altogether. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
So I think it's one thing being issued one. Not sure how lucky they will get with race control to try and argue the fact, but I've got to say, Price, he's 9.8 seconds now in front of 3rd place. And with that 10-second penalty, if he keeps this pace up, he might actually hang on to 2nd position here. And Madiki's about 6 seconds behind Camilleri, and he's definitely faster at the moment than Camilleri. See the BMW down the inside of that Mercedes-Benz, the 2 Mercedes going at it as well. But whether or not Madiki can get any more ground on Camilleri, I mean, there's probably no point when they've got to serve potentially that penalty. But Price, I think, it's looking good here, just finished in 2nd position, even with that 10-second penalty, Crailsey.
That would be a great result. Good recovery. And right now, it's just ticked over 10 seconds back to Camilleri. Medicki will be the question for mine. How far up the field can he get? But right now, he's not quicker than Price in the 48 Audi.
Well, Medicki will be promoted, you'd say, to third with that penalty that Camilleri has to serve. Very wide there for Price, going around the outside of that BMW into turn number 4. But what'll help Medicki is that if they finish third here, they'll only have a 5-second compensation time for tomorrow, whereas Gagan, they'll have to serve 15 seconds extra in the lane.
I've just heard an absolute ripper.
Oh, tell me.
I've just heard an absolute ripper. The 36 team are claiming they've got radio issues, which is why they haven't been in pit lane yet.
That's ironic, isn't it?
Amazing that that should occur.
How would they have made the actual pit stop then? Would radio have been working then?
We'll take them at their word.
Okay.
And question later. I love that.
To be fair, radios in race cars,
they are unreliable. Correct.
Very temperamental things. So there's a high chance that it's failed at a very, shall we say, convenient time for them. Not so convenient for race controllers. We're very close here with the super of, is that Quinn?
Yeah, Glenn Irwin is in the McLaren, the tough lift car he shared with Zach Suter. They're running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the Silver Am class at the moment, 13th outright in the race. Ben Newman a little bit further up the road. The Super is having a little battle pack. Quinn and Berryman. Berryman, this is for position. Berryman has a 15-second time penalty. Camilleri in the lane now, so the radio has managed to fix itself.
That's handy. That was timely, wasn't it?
And so he will serve that drive-through penalty, which elevates Medicki to third. Zoe Woods and Summer Rintoul are having a really good battle. 5 tenths between them, 4th and 5th on the road. So there's a little bit in that between Porsche and Mercedes AMG. And then the first of the Silver Am cars is Jason Gomeso in 6th place. So Camilleri in the lane. So it was a stop-go. Remember, 24 seconds, I think, was the stop-go penalty for that car. And this will feel worse than that compulsory pit stop just sitting there doing nothing, because at least everyone has to do that.
I can tell you, Crailsey, as a race car driver, this just feels like eternity. When you're taking a mandatory pit stop, that feels like eternity, but at least you know everyone else has got to do it as well. For this, it feels like a lifetime that you're in the pit lane. So he's going to exit the lane, looking around about 12th, 13th position. So, yeah, it's dropped him out of the top 10. So costly, that error, which when you're going for a top 3 result, and now he's out of the top 10.
So Gagan by 1.4 seconds over Price in the Audi, who currently running in 2nd position in the silver class and has 13 seconds back to George Medicki. Why is that important? Well, he's got 10 seconds worth of penalty time to be applied to the number 48 Audi. So right now he'll retain 2nd position in class and outright, which will be a huge result. This is a cool battle. Zoe Woods and Summer Rintoul are having a great fight. 4th and 5th on the road. They're both in the silver class. 2 fast females of Aussie Motorsport having a really good battle. TechWorks Motorsport running the Porsche, and also 888 Race Engineering running the Mercedes AMG. Caught up with the team at TechWorks earlier this morning. Rob Woods, who's Zoe's dad, proud father, watching on. It was good to see Danny Studdard here as well. The guy's done plenty of GT racing. Danny's just here spectating, enjoying his time and sitting at the back of the TechWorks hospitality. And he'll be very pleased at this performance of the Woods family or close family friends. And this is a good battle. 4th and 5th place. Zoe has driven superbly in this race, anchored by Nash Morris at the start. And hasn't young Nash just become one of those drivers that will drive absolutely everything every time and be good at all of it?
It's got, what, Super 2, Trans Am, GT4, so mixing the categories, getting plenty of miles. And just looking actually at the front left of Summer Rintoul, looked like a little bit of damage on that Mercedes. So I'm not sure whether there was contact earlier, but it's the battle. It'll be the battle between Zoe and Summer. That gap's now down to 8 tenths of a second. So that's the battle for 4th position.
I wonder if that damage came from Jared Hughes passing 300 cars starting from the back of the field.
Good chance.
Yeah, in the first part of the race. That was an awesome drive. Puts them in a super position from a championship points point of view after a tough qualifying session earlier today. Buckby Motors car gets down the inside. Ben Newman squeezes past, and he's battling with Jason Yu in Silver Am. Steve Jackick just a little bit up the road, so that's 10th and 11th on the road, 4th and 5th in class.
Now the thing for the Hughes rental car, they've done all that work today to go from last to, at the moment, 5th, but guess what?
Where do they start tomorrow?
They're going to have to do it all again tomorrow, Crailsy.
Well, they've proved it's possible.
If they keep it clean and don't succumb to any pit lane penalties, they could win the thing tomorrow.
Well, and it's the opposite for tomorrow's race. So the driver that finishes today starts tomorrow. And the driver that started today will finish race 2. So you sort of bookend the weekend if you start. So Jared Hughes will be bringing it home with a flourish tomorrow. But Summer's shown the car speed to pass some cars in her own right. So he's doing a super job up in 4th and 5th place. Tony Quinn a little bit further back here in car 101, his brand new Toyota Supra. Just pointing at a positional change. Cody Bircher making some ground in the BMW, Tim Lay's car. Jason Gomersall still leading Silver Am. What's the margin from Gomersall to Campbell in Silver Am? That's for the lead, it's 4.1 seconds. Correction, it's 20 seconds, so it's okay. Campbell to Jackick is only 4.1. So Jason Gomersall with a handy lead in the Silver Am class. And word through from Motorsport Australia Race Control. The leader has started his last lap. Max Gagan is going to bring the 25 Method Motorsport McLaren Artura GT4 home. Price and Purdy with a really good performance in 2nd place. Medicki up to 3rd. 4th place still potentially up for grabs. And actually, Summer has got right to the back of the Porsche.
I don't think we would have predicted this after the first couple of opening laps, Crailsy.
No, what a drive. And maybe a case of what could have been for Price and Purdy, but that 10-second penalty, regardless, they're going to finish 2nd, which is a super start to their year in a brand new and untested car and 2 drivers unfamiliar with Monochrome GT4 Australia. But the class of Method Motorsport that was so strong all the way throughout last year, and heard from Marcus Flack earlier in our Shannon Speed Series broadcast. He was part of this combination with Tom Heyman last year, and they had a bunch of success. They got some silverware and some trophies and a class win. And Method picking up where they left off with a huge performance in the opening race of Monochrome GT4 Australia. What a start it's been to a new championship that has exploded in interest in 2025. 30 cars on the grid, but only one of them gets the silver class win, and it's Max Gagan and Tom Heyman. Price and Purdy home in 2nd. Medicki will be across the line in 3rd place with Ryland Gray, walking away from a ridiculously large moment.
Yeah, great recovery.
Yeah. Nathan Callahan in the Porsche here across the line in 2nd place in the AM class. Here's the Ginetta. It's close between the Porsche and the Merc for 4th. We're just waiting on Jason Gomersall to get to the line to claim the AM class win. Here's the BMW car number 14. Jacob Lawrence on top in the AM class. Here's Gomersall. Super drive for Aaron Seaton early on. Jason brought it home. They had 5 seconds added to their time, but they've got a big enough margin, so they'll win the Silver AM class today in race 1 of the championship. And this is cool, on debut in the category. 2 great mates for D.A. Campbell Transport Racing in that beautiful black Ford Mustang. It's 1-2 in the class with the Fords. And Campbell gets home 2nd place in the Silver AM class. Steve Jackick is going to be 3rd. This car will be 4th. Ben Newman. Lockie Dalton did a good job early in the race to anchor that performance. And a little bit further back, we'll find the Randall Racing BMW M4. Car number 32 is going to win in the AM class.
Not to be confused with Tom Randall.
Yeah, spelled differently, to be fair. And there is that car, the blue and black BMW. Will streak across the line, and Jacob Lawrence gets the win in AM. One of the 3 classes in Monochrome GT4 Australia. Well, what a way to start the season. Plenty of drama, a lot of pit lane stuff that will need to be cleared up overnight with these teams when they do a little debrief and analyse where they could have won or lost this race pit lane penalties will be a talking point. But this is how it played out with McLaren, Audi and Ford 1, 2 and 3. Zoe Woods just held out Summer Rintoul at the end. It was 0.5 of a second between the Porsche and the 888 Mercedes. Cody Bertram, Tim Lay were next. The Silver Am class went the way of Jason Gomeso and Aaron Seaton in front of Dan Campbell and Cam Crick, Steve Jackick and Ryder Quinn for BMW in third place in Silver Am. And the red number, the red highlight there, Jacob Lawrence, the winner. Am class, driving on his own second, was Nathan Callahan and Chris Lewis, the West Aussie boys, on debut in their brand new Porsche, with Rob Rubus and Lockie Manif rounding out the three in the Am class in their Ginetta G55. Well, it sets a tone, doesn't it? What a way to start the year, and it's going to be a wild championship with so many storylines and so many cars to follow.
Absolutely. I mean, if you looked on paper and saw that McLaren and Audi, they started in those positions and finished like that, you'd think, oh, I guess not much would have happened, but it was an entertaining race, Crailsy.
Ford in the mix today, but first blood in Monochrome GT4 goes the way of McLaren. Max Gagan and Tom Heyman, the first winners in a brand new season for Monochrome GT4.